Hey, Nerd Herd, we're back again today to talk about some young players that may benefit your team down the road. Some great buy lows if you're rebuilding, or like we like to say, reloading.
Click, click. That was your line.
That was my line. You stole it, but that's all right. We'll get on to the show.
Ready, set, hut, hut. Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, where we discuss Dynasty strategy, rankings, and all things NFL. So get ready to geek out on fantasy football with your host, Rich Dotson.
And welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Rich Dotson.
I'm Matt O'Hara.
And I'm Garret Price.
Look at that sweet-ass intro. And today we are here to talk some sweet-ass Dynasty Fantasy Football. We got two great shows lined up.
Language.
This is the family show.
This is the family show, sir.
Oh, we got some sweet tookus lined up.
Sweet butt.
Yeah. Save that for the
Sweet butt.
nerd herd.
Okay. Sweet butt? That sounds way more pervy, McGurry.
It really does.
It does.
That's some
Is
sweet
booty
butt.
okay? Can we say booty?
I mean, you can say whatever you want. It's America. Well, that's not true. You can't say anything you want. But you can say a lot.
We can say most of what you want.
Like today, we can say a lot about players that we're going to be talking about.
All right. What
today,
players?
We have two great shows lined up for you today on the regular show and, of course, the Nerd Herd show. Today, we're going to talk about a couple players that you should be buying if you're in rebuild mode, or we like to say here, if you're reloading. Then on the Nerd Herd show, we're going to talk about a couple players that we think you should buy if you're in win now mode. Because that's Dynasty, right? Either you're contending or you're reloading. There should never, ever be an in-between, ever. Nope. And we talk about it all the time in Dynasty Fantasy Football. One of the hardest things to do is to see your team through a clear lens, right? Like, you're always biased. These are always the guys that you draft, so you love them. You have an attachment for them, and, hey, they're going to pan out next year. And that's why when we talk about the Dynasty GM and why we built the Dynasty GM is because it gives you a realistic look at your team from the outside. It does so much more than that.
Take away that rose-colored visor.
I have it. We all do it, right?
Absolutely.
But the Dynasty GM that'll show you where your team stacks up amongst your league mates. Are you in the middle? It is literally the worst place to be in Dynasty Fantasy Football. You get a middle-of-the-road draft pick. You barely make the playoffs, or you just missed the playoffs. You're never winning.
It's harder to get those impact guys that can push you over the top.
Yeah, you got to look into
them.
In
the middle of the rounds, yep.
You need a strong draft like this 21 class and 2020 class, 2019. So, and of course, the Dynasty GM is absolutely free for all of you to try right now at dynastynerds.com. That's right, 3 days for free. Just try it out. No strings attached, no credit cards, no nothing. And you'll see, like most people do, once you try it out, like, oh, I can't let this baby go.
It's like is it Lay's? You can only have one, or you can't only have one.
Is it
Lay's or Ruffles or one
Pringles?
of those potato chips?
Once you pop, the fun don't stop. That's Pringles.
I thought it was more like Tiny Dancer and just want to hold you closer.
Well, there's that too.
Hold me closer, Dynasty GM. I am a Tiny Dancer.
You're a tiny dancer?
Yeah, I'll just drink small. I keep my arms close.
Yeah, I've seen you on the dance floor.
Yeah, I keep everything tight.
You got the hitch in you.
You're a creepy dancer sometimes.
Squeeze my sweet butt tight. So today's show, we're going to talk about, like we said, a couple players we think you should buy if you're reloading, right? So these are guys that we don't think will necessarily pay dividends right away. Maybe some will.
Right.
But will pay dividends down the road when you're actually ready to compete. Most turnaround windows in Dynasty Fantasy Football is a 2 to 3 year window. That's when you go from being a bottom of the barrel team to starting to compete. 2 to 3 years. Depends how strong you draft and how strong that draft class that you reload in. Like last year, if you reloaded last year into this year, chances are you're going to have a very strong team in 2022, if not even this year, if you acquire a lot of draft picks. So let's dive in here. Let's talk about a couple guys. We each have two players that we want to talk about here that we think will pay dividends down the road. And let's see if you guys agree. Shall we?
Let's do it.
I'll go first. My first guy here, which is it's funny, we all picked a tight end.
We did.
Which is nice because what position always pays dividends on the road and you don't know because it's down the road? The tight end.
The tight end, yep.
Yeah. Or the sweet butt end.
The tight butt.
The tight butt. Come on, this is a family show. We got to keep it tight.
That's right. Jake Butt. That's what I meant.
Tight end, Michigan.
Tight
Couple
Jake
ACL tears. Could have been somebody, but
could have been a butt.
But he's butt.
But he's
By
gone.
butt,
I'm not going to go any butter for anything else. So let's just do
butter. Harrison Bryant, Cleveland Browns. He's coming off a rookie year. He had 38 catches, 238 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And those stats won't really blow you away, but if you watch the Browns every second, every single play, like I did, and in the preseason when he won the preseason award, is you saw a player that came in and looked good. He had a couple drops later in the season as well and throughout the year, but you expect that from rookies. Mm-hmm. And when Harrison Bryant came out of Florida Atlantic, we said he was basically a big wide receiver. That's what we saw out of a guy like Harrison Bryant.
Yep.
And they signed Austin Hooper to one of the most glorified contracts in tight end for a tight end ever.
Correct.
4 years, almost all guaranteed. They have David Njoku, who's not a free agent. They picked up his fifth year option, former first round pick. They will either trade him or he'll be here. But again, I'm not looking at Harrison Bryant to help my dynasty team in 2021. When I'm looking to help my Harrison Bryant is to help my dynasty team more so in 2023, actually. And 2022, take another step forward where we know these tight ends take a little bit of time to develop. What I really like about Bryant, not only what he showed us on the field this year, but Kevin Stefanski, who just won Coach of the Year, congrats, Kevin, is his system is very tight end friendly. He likes to utilize the tight ends. They can be a big focal point. And in 3 years down the road, we're talking about guys that will no longer be on the team. Austin Hooper, they'll get out from under that contract. Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry will be right around that 31 years of age. Their contracts will be up as well, so they will no longer be around. There's a chance that Harrison Bryant, best case scenario, would be the focal point of this offense and be arguably the Travis Kelce, the George Kittle, right?
Yep.
I think worst case, in my opinion, he's going to be the number 2 option in this offense, which is what they want out of Hooper. The reason they paid Hooper big money is because that's what Stefanski envisioned. He'd be their number 2 option. Right. He'd be that Travis Kelce, the Pat Mahomes, right? So that's where I look at Harrison Bryant right around that 2023 season to be, if not the number 1 option in this offense with Baker Mayfield, but the number 2 option and putting you up those top 7 fantasy numbers at tight end, which is what we all covet. This is the one position that can get, we say about this all the time, the tight end position, or at least I say it all the time, how I always want to have a good tight end on my roster because it's the one part of the team that can give you that edge over your opponent, right? In Dynasty, as your league evolves, these teams all get pretty good. You get top heavy and you get bottom heavy with those couple turd fergs that are stuck in the middle because they don't have the Dynasty GM and they don't know where they stand. And when everybody has a good team, where do you get that edge? Travis Kelce gives you that edge. George Kittle gives you that edge. Darren Waller gives you that edge. I like Harrison Bryant to give my team an edge in 2023. And yes, that's a couple of years down the road, but again, this is not redraft. This is Dynasty Fantasy Football. And right now, you can get Harrison Bryant come draft time when you're in the middle of your draft, probably for a mid-third, right around there. Mm-hmm. Later third after these top, like Pat Freiermuths go.
Brevin Jordan
goes. Yep. So obviously Kyle Pitts is going top 7 because that dude's one of the best tight ends I've ever scouted in my life.
He's wild.
And so for me right now, a guy that you can get in the late third that can pay dividends down the road is a great value. Do you guys like Harrison Bryant as a buy for the future?
Yeah, man, I love Harrison Bryant. Obviously, you talked about him in college, and this was a guy that went over 1,000 yards in his senior season there. So he's a receiving threat, a big time receiving threat out of the tight end position, and he is going to take a little bit of time, but like you had mentioned, I think he's got a really high upside. I don't know, Travis Kelce is shooting for the moon. I mean, that's like the gold standard of tight end production and kind of the guys that set you farthest, they differentiate you, I guess, better than anyone else at any other position. But there's a very likely scenario where he is the number 2 guy coming up here in a few years. And I think you laid it out there perfectly. I guess the avenue for him to get there. So, it's just kind of a matter of time. And Stefanski, like you said, he loves using 2 tight end sets even. So I think it's going to be a nice growth curve for him because he's going to get a lot of playing time. And eventually when, Hooper's aged out of his contract and the 2 wide receivers, Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry, have both kind of aged their way out of the Cleveland Brown offense, it'll be perfect timing for Harrison Bryant to kind of work his way into it.
And I think the rest of the NFL and Dynasty players will see this coming within the next about 18 months. They'll see it. So this is your time to get the head start on that before that price starts to go up. Because then maybe by this time, at the end of the time next year, at the end of the year, you're like, oh, maybe I'd give up a late second for Harrison Bryant. This 2022 class isn't as strong. And then after 2022 season, you're like, oh man, I'd give up a high second for Harrison Bryant. So to me, the price is going to keep going up.
It is going to keep going up. And tight ends, it's one of those things where in Dynasty fantasy football, you kind of always have to have one in the pipeline. You know what I mean? Even if you're set at the position, because it takes so long for these guys to develop and become difference makers for your team, you always want to be plucking one of these guys. And it's awesome if you've seen a guy like Harrison Bryant who's done it now on a limited basis, but has shown flashes. These are the perfect guys to go out and snag now, and in 2 years he'll be ready for your championship run if you're in a rebuild.
And I draft a tight end every year.
So do I.
And I'm in one league. One of these leagues I'm in. It's a 10-year-old league. My depth at tight end is disgusting. And one day when we do a tight end show, I'll talk about it. I literally have the best tight end, and I've traded away tons. I've traded away guys like Travis Kelce and who else? I've traded away a ton, but I still have them all. I still have George Kittle, T.J. Hockenson, Robert Tonyan, Logan Thomas, Colt Kmet. I still have them all. You know what I mean? But I'm the same way. I drop them. And going back to Brian as well. If you want to know how much Stefanski already likes his rookie they drafted, he outstarted David Njoku, the former first-round pick, who, again, has a high ceiling as well. So, Garrett, you got any thoughts on Harrison Bryant before we move on to Matt's guy?
Yeah, no, I'm a fan of Harrison Bryant as well, and it is a good thing for his case, too, that it is a two tight end set because Harrison's not a blocker. He's never been a blocker. That's not a skill set. He's the best when he can be a stand-up Y as opposed to, being an inline blocker. But traditionally, if you're going to have two guys in there on passing downs, one of them's going to be to pass protect, the other one's going to go out. So if it were a system where it was mostly only utilizing one tight end, I'd have a little bit more concerns just because he can't really block. How much will he be on the field? But because he's so willing to use two tight ends, I think it's a perfect situation for Bryant. I think we're going to see good production from him long term.
Yeah, and the stand-up why we've seen Bryant be utilized already in the slot already as a rookie, and we'll see more of that as the offense grows.
And I think you would have had more production had the Browns not been. It sounds funny, but because the Browns were good, I think he had less production because of those couple drops and things like that.
He had a fumble in a game and stuff like that where you could see, and it was kind of a 2 or 3 week in a row type of thing, and then he started getting his snaps dialed back, I feel like. And then they even kind of went to Njoku
a little more because they could trust him. He's a little bit more of a veteran and things like that.
Absolutely.
But his time will come.
And you could have mentioned Njoku in this conversation as well as a good player to buy now.
Because he might be going somewhere that'll use him.
I was going to say, I feel like I thought about putting him into this show as a person of interest for a rebuild, and I still think he is a good one, but mostly because I think he might be somewhere else. You know what I mean? It's not going to be a next year thing. It's probably going to be after next year when he leaves.
I see the Browns with a team with the roster, the salary cap coming in probably around $180 million. A lot of teams have to make some cuts here or trim their salary. David Njoku's 5th-year option isn't that expensive. I can see it's only 1 year. I can see teams maybe flipping a defensive starter that's worth a little bit more money for a tight end. May need a tight end. A team like the New England Patriots who are up against it right now when it comes to salary cap. I can see them maybe moving a defensive player to the Browns as well. Matt, give us a guy that you like down the road here. It's a good buy if your team is reloading.
So obviously, this is going to be definitely a rebuild type of situation because we haven't seen much from this player. But my guy is the Indianapolis Colts wide receiver, Paris Campbell. Still very young, 23 years old right now. I think he'll be 24 by the time next season starts. But he's going into his 3rd season. He really hasn't played much, unfortunately. It was 7 games his rookie season and only 2 last year before his season was cut short again due to injury. But T.Y. Hilton, obviously is the main reason I like him because T.Y. Hilton's going to be off this team, I believe, next year. He's an impending free agent.
There is a rumor they might bring him back.
Really?
Yeah, and that's honestly my biggest concern is, does he come back? And then supposedly they've had interest in guys like Godwin and Allen Robinson. That would be my only concern because if it's him and Pittman, it's wheels up.
I mean, it's definitely wheels up, but this is a guy that I really, really liked coming out of college. And this is a legitimate 4-3 type of guy, and he just hasn't been able to stay on the field. And obviously, in Frank Reich, I mean, if you remember back to the day of the draft, they're showing all the the behind the scenes type thing where they were really excited to get this guy. As soon as they picked him, I think they were excited and also surprised that he was there. He's that big of a talent, but he's a perfect fit as well for the type of offense they're running, the West Coast offense where they're going to dump the ball off and really on these short crossing routes and that type of stuff and let the guy do work. And that's what he does. He's great at run after the catch and it's just a matter of him getting healthy. Yep. And I think you can use that, the fact that he was a 2nd round draft pick but now he hasn't produced for 2 years, to get him at a reduced rate and really get a ton of upside for, I mean, at this point, he can't be much more than like a third or fourth round draft pick. You'd have to give up to get Paris Campbell.
High third, very late second.
Okay.
I think you'd probably get maybe like a late second to get somebody back in the second round. Might change come draft day because, everybody gets real excited. Depends how deep this draft is when you get to those rounds. But I'd be okay giving up the late. I'd have no problem whatsoever giving up anywhere from pick 2-9 on for a guy like Paris Campbell now. I'd really feel like I'd give up a little bit more, me personally, but I just know he's not worth that. I don't have to.
I feel like you would be overpaying. And in his one full game this season, he had 9 targets, 6 receptions, 71 yards. So I mean, that's the type of that's what he had week 1 in this weird shortened offseason and everything. So they have a spot for him. They like him. They'd like to use him. It's just that health has been his biggest deterrent, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those close to the line of scrimmage guys. You put the ball in his hands, and then you just let him go.
Mm-hmm.
You just let him utilize that speed, utilize that elusiveness, and just let him make plays. He's going to be more of a West Coast style type of wide receiver. And I think regardless of who's the quarterback next year, whether it's somebody they draft, whether it's Carson Wentz
in a trade.
Yeah. I mean, it's still wide open for them since we know Phillip Rivers has already retired. That ship has sailed. So, and it sounds like at this point, Jacob Eason really isn't in the conversation, which kind of surprised me. I thought they might, at least see what they had, but it sounds like they're out on him. So I have no clue who the quarterback's going to be, but somebody that can operate close to the line of scrimmage and gain a bunch of yards without having to be a deep throw is always a nice weapon to have.
Jacob Eason, back on him real fast. They're the people that have the most information on him at this point. You know what I mean? Like us, we're outside observers. So I'm gonna go. I didn't love the guy to begin with. I think he had I think he had some good arm talent, but there were some weird things about him. I feel like leadership.
It's a good thing for their weapons if he's not the quarterback.
I do feel like that. Yep, absolutely.
And I love Paris Campbell too. This is a guy I think we brought him up on the show multiple times. You maybe even talked about him last year as a breakout going into 2020, and you mentioned the 4.3 speed, second round pick, savvy route runner, good hands, a really good complement to Michael Pittman Jr. And we saw what T.Y. Hilton did late in the year, and it can only get better in the quarterback situation. You mentioned West Coast offense, very QB friendly, helped the wide receivers a ton as well. So I think Paris Campbell's a great reloading kind of options here, because again, when we mention this late second round picks or third round picks, these are minimal investments with high upside is what we're talking about here. So if they don't pan out, you're not missing out. You're not killing your dynasty team, because if you miss out on a late second round pick, it hurts your team. It can set you back just a little bit, but it's not devastating. It's not like you made this big bold trade that set you back. And I feel like Paris Campbell's floor is safe if he's healthy.
If he's healthy, yeah,
but
absolutely.
Even last year he broke his hand. It wasn't like anything that was like, he pulled. It's not like he has a whole bunch of muscle tightness, which is another player I'm going to talk about later with a lot of muscle strains. So the 4.3 speed, the route running. I mean, this is a guy we gave as a rookie first round grade over Terry McLaurin. We kept going back like, hey, who do you put here at the end? Do we put Terry McLaurin or do we put Paris Campbell? We ended up going Paris Campbell. We were wrong, but at the same time,
Time will tell. No,
it's only been 2 years.
Right.
I mean,
we were right.
There's tons of receivers that have come into the league that have taken a couple years, whether it be injury. Hall of Famer Andre Johnson or future Hall of Famer Andre Johnson. His first couple of years in the league, he was banged up, and it took him for a little while to develop. And he was a buy at the time.
Right.
If we were doing a Dynasty podcast, I would have been all over. You got to go out and buy Andre Johnson right now. And I made moves for him in our league at the time because I saw the upside there. And there's tons of players like that. And Paris Campbell to me fits that mold. Like you said, I remember that video. They were super pumped about drafting this guy and add him to the roster. And I know there's rumors out there about getting, Chris Godwin or wide receiver, but Tampa Bay is not letting Chris Godwin leave. They're going to franchise him or they're going to sign him to a contract because he's just too good and he's too young.
There are other receivers. There's Allen Robinson. There's Juju. There's Kenny Golladay. Like, this is a very wide receiver heavy free agent class.
But none they have. That's the thing. Like the guys you just mentioned, they're not Michael. They're not Paris Campbell. Those are Michael Pittman Jr. guys, right? Like Allen Robinson's a fantastic.
I think Juju would run out of the slot, but yeah.
Yeah, but he's not going to the Colts. He's not going to. But anything I say lately that's not going to happen.
Yeah, right.
I was going to say.
We're not going to go there.
I don't think he's going there either.
I think he still goes to the Jets personally. It's just
probably.
Me.
Them or the Washington football team. I think those are the two.
And just to give you a heads up, Indianapolis Colts are the second highest. They have the second highest amount of cap space. So
You could easily sign a receiver.
Got that
they
money.
could easily sign one. Yeah,
But it could just be bringing T.Y. Hilton back, and that's it.
Or they could trade for Carson Wentz, and all of a sudden a big chunk of that money goes down the window.
And I would be if they brought
Down the window?
Yeah, you got to roll down the window to go out it.
Yeah, you can't go out the window.
it's
So
fine.
it
We
went down like it went down the window?
You never saw those old windows that used to, the top used to come down.
Yeah, you ever got like a bug flying around your car and you want to let out the window and it's like on the window, all of a sudden you roll your window down, it goes down with the
Yeah,
window.
you
and
roll
you're
your
like,
window down. It didn't go
down with the window she goes.
All right, let's get into the next guy here. I'm going back to the tight end position, a guy that I have been all over the past, I can't say couple years, past year. It's only been in the league one season.
No, you've
Mother
been
of
all
Garret.
on him for 2
Although I am a Debbie guy, so I can get away with it.
That's a sweet butt.
I am going with Cole Kmet, second rounder. When we talk about a physical build from the tight end position, 6'6", 260 pounds. Started the year off really slow.
He's a mountain of a man.
He is a mountain of a
Go
man.
ahead.
Uber athletic.
Very, very athletic. Started the season off, nothing happening.
Nope.
Nothing happening.
It's like me and my dates.
But the second half of the season, all of a sudden he was
From 2008, when was the last time you were on a date?
yes, 2008.
Friday with my wife.
Oh, I guess
Oh,
that's your
okay.
wife.
All right.
Margaret,
That
we
counts.
did
That counts. My bad.
All right.
Yeah.
That would clear that up. All right.
That went somewhere, by the way.
What'd you say?
Nothing.
It went down the window.
Oh, that went somewhere.
Went down the window.
But from week 10 on, he was a major part of this offense. And we're talking about multiple weeks where he had 6, 7, 8 targets.
Yeah.
They were looking to get him the football. And that was with Jimmy Graham still there. Maybe Jimmy Graham's back this year. I don't know.
Jimmy Graham's not back.
I would be surprised if he was back. But even if he was, this is Cole Kmet's team now. He's the starting tight end. And the craziest part about all of this, last offseason, the one that was full of COVID and full of all that stuff, was his first season not playing baseball in the spring.
Yeah.
He was playing baseball every spring up into that point. We're talking about an uber athletic mountain of a man that is moving into, he's only 22 years old, not even 22. He's about to be 22 years old. Young stud. I just think that he is going to absolutely blossom. And the price is already starting to climb, and it's only going to keep climbing higher. You got to get in now before he just becomes unattainable.
What's the price range? Mid-second in this draft?
I would guess. Right now, in the most recent draft that I did, he went as tight end 13 off the board.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that. I give up a higher second for him because, like you mentioned, Jimmy Graham likely gone, Allen Robinson likely gone. Where are these targets going? Who's going to be their big weapon here on the offense? It's going to be Cole Kmet. You mentioned he overtook Jimmy Graham over those last 5 games of the year.
Yep.
Those last 5 games of the year, he saw 30 targets. So in all those games. And in all those games, except for the Minnesota game, he saw at least 6 targets, where he saw 2 versus Minnesota, but the minimum he saw over the last 5 games was 6. And you mentioned this is his team now with no A-Rob, Anthony Miller coming back here.
Right.
Who are going to be all the weapons? Right now, it's David Montgomery, Anthony Miller, and Cole Kmet are the ones that you feel really comfortable about, and we still don't know who the quarterback is. But any quarterback
You know
comes
who
in.
it could be.
Could be Mitch.
Could
be Mitch.
Could be Mitch. Could be Carson
Mitch.
Wentz.
I think it could be Mitch.
But like you mentioned, Allen Robinson gone. Anthony Miller was in the doghouse towards the end of that.
He was.
End of last season.
It's really Mooney's team.
It's Mooney. Yeah. It is Mooney and Cole Kmet right now, and David Montgomery for vying for targets. I mean, Tariq Cohen obviously is coming back next year and will be involved, but Cole Kmet is looking right now like he's probably the second best pass catcher out of that group. I mean, Tariq Cohen being the best, and that, he's a gadget player. Right. So Cole Kmet could very easily next year be one of the more viable targets in that offense. And 2 or 3 years down the line, because we're talking rebuild type of stuff, he could be a monster. So, yeah, I absolutely love this pick right here. Cole Kmet, sky's the limit. He was my tight end one at tight end one.
I think he was
this.
our consensus tight end one.
Yeah.
And we know Nagy's been looking for a tight end for this offense to run his offense through.
They've had like 10 on the roster every year.
And they found
literally
they
had
finally
like
found
10.
one.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
So there's no reason to think that he won't see, there's no reason to think these targets won't go up. So where he saw a minimum of 6 over the last 5 games, in every game except for the Minnesota game over the last 5 where we saw 30 targets. I said you extrapolate that over a whole season, he's seeing almost 100 targets in a year, which is fantastic for a tight end. So odds of him finishing as a tight end 1 next season. So this is for a reload team, like you mentioned, 22, that could pay dividends right away. Harrison Bryant won't pay dividends right away. Paris Campbell could pay dividends right away. The most realistic guy right now we are talking about of the 3 that we mentioned, Cole Kmet, most likely the one to actually help your team take a step forward in 2021 and beyond.
And another thing that I liked about that pick is his targets going up also correlated with Mitch coming back in the lineup. So between him or Carson Wentz, who we also know loves
the tight end,
loves to target the tight end, he's going to be with a guy that feels comfortable throwing to the tight end position as well. So that's just another nugget that another reason I think to like him.
To be fair, I bought my wife a squat machine because I like tight ends too.
There you go, tight butt.
Squat machine. Just a bar or what?
I don't know.
Here's a rack and a bar.
I completely made it up. I didn't know there is such thing as a squat machine. I said I don't want to say something about tight butts because I just appreciate them.
I know. Hey, dude, I'm a butt guy.
Yeah, all the above for me. Okay.
Everything above the butt, you're out.
Right from the D.
All right.
All of the above. So, hey, before we go into our next guy, Garrett, why don't you talk about somebody where all the guys that we're talking about will totally correlate with one of our sponsors?
This might as well just be the Prediction Strike show, right?
Correct.
I mean, we're talking about guys that we want to buy before their value increases.
Yeah. These guys are cryptocurrency 12 months ago.
So, Cole Kmet, Harrison Bryant, Paris Campbell. The other 3 guys I'm not going to tell you because I don't want to spoil it.
Coming soon.
All those guys would be great guys to get on Prediction Strike. We've been hearing all about the market. We've been hearing all about the stock market and all of these different stocks. And Elon Musk's even tweeting about them. And it's wild out there right now. It's the wild, wild west. And you can get the sports version of that over at PredictionStrike.com. It is the only performance-based sports stock market where you can buy and sell shares of professional athletes just like they were stocks. Some other guys that we've talked about over the years, well, not even over the years, some guys that we're going to be talking about here soon, all of our rookie shows. You're going to want to listen to all of our rookie shows because those are going to be the types of guys that you're going to want to get quickly on PredictionStrike.com. Sign up with the promo code Dynasty to receive $10 free with your first deposit of $20 or more. That's code Dynasty for $10 to receive $10 with your deposit of $20 or more. You guys are all distracted. You realize we're on camera right now.
I know, but
this isn't an audio.
We're looking at our crypto money.
I'm trying to do a read.
You're doing a great read.
Doing great. We're just talking about
Prediction Strike.
Bitcoin and Ethereum. It's great.
Prediction Strike's awesome, and it's just like our cryptos that we're looking at right now.
That we're very excited about.
And the graph, because I saw Benjamin Albright tweet about the graph, and it was at like 50 cents. I bought a couple $100 worth, and now it's already doubled. I'm like, this is great.
This is great.
No, I love Prediction Strike. They're great. People ask me this on Twitter all the time, like, who are good Prediction Strike investments? And I'm like, tons of people. You play Dynasty, Denzel Mims. Go out there and get them.
Absolutely. The Adam Gase effect. The reverse Adam Gase effect.
So let's get into our another guy here. Guy on my list here. We mentioned muscle strains, right? This guy is the king of them lately, but I still love him. I still think he's a good buy. I'm talking about Deebo Samuel, the San Francisco 49ers, 25 years old. And right now, I think he can be bought for a late first-round pick, right around from pick 110 on. And I personally still feel comfortable giving up that for Deebo Samuel because I'm still a big believer. This is a guy played in 7 games, but basically that was 6 because he missed most of Week 14 versus Washington football team where he got hurt. And he looked good in the time he was in there. This is a guy who could end up starting off the 2021 season seeing the 3rd best defender, right? Because Brandon Ayuk looked fantastic. We all know George Kittle's fantastic. We don't know who the quarterback is 100%, most likely Jimmy Garoppolo, but a lot of rumors out there about San Francisco. And Deebo Samuel, if you remember our rookie breakdown, this is a guy who we just loved the way he plays football. And he's a guy that gets utilized all over the field. He can be playing in the slot. He can play out wide. He can play in the backfield and get carries. This is a guy, when he gets the ball in his hand, he looks like a running back.
He's built like one, 5'11", 214. He's built like a running back.
Yeah.
He's a monster. And which is why he is fantastic with the ball in his hands. When it comes to yards after the catch, Deebo Samuel is one of the best guys in the league to do that. Now, we've only seen it on a limited basis, but when he does get the ball in his hands, he's electric. Think of like Golden Tate.
I was going to say, that's exactly who I think of when you're describing it, and when I think of him as well. It's just, this is a guy that you get the ball in his hands, you can get him in his hands in a variety of different ways, and he can make things happen. He can turn into a running back. He can get those little slip screens and start working his way through traffic that way as well. He's a very versatile player, and I think the injuries that he's had these past couple of years, I think would open up a window and make him a nice buy at this point.
Let me ask this question, though, because I'm with you guys. I like Deebo Samuel quite a bit. But we do have to ask the question about, like, is Jimmy Garoppolo going to be the quarterback next year? Because so far that hasn't been a wonderful thing necessarily. Right.
I think he's the best of the bunch. I think we can
the best of the ones that are there currently now.
Exactly.
That is probably true. So there's that question. And then we know George Kittle's going to get his. Do we think if Jimmy G is the quarterback that Kittle plus Ayuk and or Deebo, I feel like one of those guys is not going to be able to produce like we want them to.
I feel like Deebo is the kind of player where he's in the game script, right? You're going to with Kyle Shanahan being so innovative and the way he runs his offense, Deebo will be utilized, and how dynamic he is with the ball in his hands. Same thing for Ayuk is, I think they're going to make sure, like, Kittle's just a big play guy. He's living
going to happen
talent.
Regardless for him.
He's going to own the middle of the field.
Yep.
But outside of that, Shanahan will get the ball in his playmakers' hands. And right now, it's not like Ayuk's out here as the dominant number one. He's not Julio Jones, right? He's not that guy. So for me, with no sure thing at running back yet, they're bringing in a guy like Aaron Jones. That would worry me more so than about Ayuk or Deebo, right? Because then they're going to throw the ball to him a ton and run the ball. To me, I think Deebo Samuel's safe because Kyle Shanahan knows what he has in a guy like Deebo Samuel, and he will game plan around him to make sure he's getting 6 touches per game. And if you give a guy like Deebo Samuel 6 touches per game, he's going to give you double-digit fantasy points week in and week out.
And to piggyback on your idea a little bit there, I feel like Kyle Shanahan, he's been fighting with one arm tied behind his back because he hasn't had all his weapons healthy yet. And, there hasn't been a lot of time. It's been like Debo's been injured, and then Ayuk was playing, and then Ayuk was injured, and then Debo was playing, and then Debo re-injured himself, and then Ayuk, you know what I mean?
And then Jimmy's hurt.
Yeah, exactly, and then Jimmy's hurt. So I feel like he is a good enough offensive coordinator that he will be able to get all of them involved, the 2 wide receivers and the tight end, and also have a very good running game.
You really think that they can support 3 offensive passing weapons and a good running game?
I honestly do.
Offense, I do 100%.
Yes, I do.
Other teams do it.
I don't know that they can do that with Jimmy.
Other teams do it. I mean, if Sean McVay's done it with the weapons he's had, right? Yep. New Orleans has done it with the weapons that they've had at times. Well,
I was going to say, they're maybe not the best.
Theirs was always
they're not the best. It's always mostly 2 because he wants to utilize the 10. It hasn't worked out. But I mean, if we sit here and go through it, I mean, look at.
I think McVay was a good enough example.
Minnesota,
because it's a very similar system that they both run, and it's easy. You can say yes, that offense can support 2 wide receivers and a tight end and still have a fairly decent running game. It's almost the exact. It's a carbon copy type of thing. I feel like they're very similar teams. It's just a matter of him getting a little bit better play out of the quarterback position.
But they didn't. But I was going to say the Rams never did get 3 going at the same time. They did for that like small window at like when McVay was first there.
Yeah.
But it was like the first half of the season, and then from there on out, it's really just been Woods and Kupp. And even when Kupp took his dip, that's when Higbee took his bounce. That's my only worry is I just don't know. And I'm not saying don't buy Deebo because I love Deebo as a player. I just don't know that Ayuk and Samuel can coexist at the same time as Kittle.
I think the way to look at it though is differently is sometimes when you talk about players like, oh, this guy's gonna be a wide receiver 1. I'm not saying that. I'm looking at like a mid-range wide receiver 2, right? Like a steady Eddie, solid wide receiver 16, 18 overall, which is a championship caliber player on your roster. And we're talking about giving up a second-round pick for that guy, right? Like a mid-range second-round pick. We're not talking about, a door buster. None of these guys we're talking about right now are guys that are come in and put up wide receiver 1 numbers, wide receiver 2.
Sure.
In Dynasty, that's something you have to get off of a lot of times is like everybody's trying to chase that big trade. Everyone wants that wide receiver 1, that that running back 1. But running back 2s and wide receiver 2s, they win you championship. They're very important players. And where I see Debo's value is like I mentioned, that offense and his skill set is the touches that he will get and what he will do with those touches.
Sure. And
when you get a guy that you can get on your roster that will give you over 10 points per game, that's a mid-range to high-end wide receiver 2 if they stay healthy year in, year out. And those are kind of players you can rely on and get it. If you get Deebo Samuel as your wide receiver 3 and he's giving you those numbers, you have yourself a championship caliber player. So I think in Kyle Shanahan's offense, I think, like Matt said, I think he is good enough of offensive coordinator, like how Sean McVay runs his offense, where that thing just pumps out fantasy goodness. I think another offense like how Minnesota did this year, right? 2 wide receiver 1s and a top 3 running back. I think Kevin Stefanski's offense, the way he runs his offense, what do you have? 2 running back 1s. Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt were running back 1s this year. Running back 11, running back 10. And I think when you bring back next year with the offensive passing game with a guy like Odell Beckham, they can have a wide receiver, a high-end wide receiver 2 or end. Almost like Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp, right? Not right there as wide receiver 1s necessarily, but high-end wide receiver 2s.
But they don't have George Kittle. That's the X factor. And the other X factor is that defense is going to be much better next year, and they might just run the heck out of the football.
Can you at least agree that if Deebo Samuel and Ayuk are both healthy, Deebo Samuel at least has a fighting chance to be that number 1 wide receiver?
Oh, absolutely. He definitely does.
Yeah,
I'm just saying that my thing is I just don't know that both can be true. That George Kittle can be a top 3 tight end, that both Ayuk and Deebo can be both wide receiver 2s. I don't think all 3 of those things can happen.
Okay. And that's fair.
Because I do. I think that deep with Nick Bosa coming and all of those guys
it's a fair argument.
Yeah.
It's hard. Well, the biggest argument is there's only 24 of them, right? There's only 24
wide receiver
1s and 2. So that alone kind of limits it to push it all that field to have a tight end 1 and have a strong running game, which is what I envision.
And it's hard because I'm arguing against myself a little bit because I like the player. I do. It's just I want to make sure that we can get it.
And for the price tag right now of a guy, like I was out trying to buy some Brandon Ayuk, for the price tag, Brandon Ayuk's going to cost you a first easily.
Right. I think Debo's the cheaper option for sure.
The cheaper option with just as much upside.
Totally agree.
And from a fantasy perspective, I think Ayuk might offer a little bit more. I'd give the touchdown edge to Ayuk. But I think the guy who offers more upside, if I had to pick one, I would take Ayuk just because of the health concerns. But for the price, that's easy. If I had to pick between Devontae Adams and that's easy. Like,
did you just compare Brandon Ayuk to Brandon?
I did because he's that good. No,
okay.
I would lean Deebo. I just think that's why we're talking about him today. I think the value's there for a reloading team to get a 25-year-old wide receiver that, like Matt said, could be the number 1 receiver in a Kyle Shanahan offense. Matt, give me your guy.
All right, my next guy. Smooth transition. My computer closed on me.
Darkness.
Darkness. My guy is Adam Troutman. Obviously, tight end of the New Orleans Saints. New Orleans Saints.
Yeah. Or not.
I just in my
Who
head.
are all these people?
In my head, I said New England Patriots, and I was like, no, it's not New England Patriots. It's Saints. But I said Saints out of my mouth. So here we go. Obviously, the Saints in cap hell. They're obviously not going to be bringing back Jared Cook because he's not even counted into the $70 million that they're over.
I thought it was almost over $90 million.
Well, they just had a restructure with Drew Brees that dropped at about $25 million. So even with him going down to like bare minimum salary for his rookie or for his veteran pay, they're still at $70 million over. So there's really not a lot they can do as far as bringing in new guys. So that really leaves them with the guys that they have. I mean, it's Traquan Smith, it's Michael Thomas, and it's Alvin Kamara, and then it's going to be Adam Troutman. They don't have anyone else at the tight end position, worth a darn. This is the clean show, right?
Damn right it is.
Real quick, Cook has an $8 million roster bonus due in March, so
he'll be gone by.
They should cut him before that.
Very soon.
He'll be out of there. So thank you, Jared, for correcting me. I thought he was already off the team, but he is
I thought
still
he was
on
off
there.
the team too.
I was actually, as he was saying that, I was looking at him. I was like, I think he's still on the team.
So he does count as he does count in that.
But they're probably
70 million.
trying to save money. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
So
He'll be gone.
So Troutman's a guy that he went to Dayton, so he was a smaller school guy. Didn't make a huge impact in his rookie season, but this is another guy similar to Harrison Bryant who had big time numbers. Last year in Dayton, he had over 900 yards receiving. So he's a big time threat out of the tight end position again as far as receiving goes. And that alone, I mean, we talked about it earlier, how these guys, you kind of have to have them before they become good, or otherwise it just becomes cost prohibitive.
Yep.
And in the Saints offense,
I don't know how to talk.
Thanks, Rich. In the Saints offense, you want to get a piece of these guys before they become the number one option there. Sean Payton in the past has always had the number one guy and then kind of another guy. And I think Troutman could end up being one of these centerpiece type of guys down the road. And that's why I'm shooting for him in a reload.
Yeah, when I saw you putting Adam Troutman on this list, I really like what you put him on here because, again, you're talking about a guy who didn't do much this year. The most catches he had in a game was 3. He did that twice. The most yards he had in a game was 45. Finished the year 17 catches, 171 yards, and 3 touchdowns. But like Matt said, and kind of go back to Harrison Bryant too, like these tight ends take time to develop. And this is a tight end that not only the Saints believed in, because when they drafted him in the 3rd round, they traded away 4 draft picks to get Adam Troutman. They gave up all their day 3 picks. That's 4 draft picks they gave up to get him in the 3rd round to move back up there. That's how much they believed in.
And they knew the salary cap situation they were going to be in this year. They didn't know the extent of it at the time.
It was going to be bad.
But they knew it was going to be bad. And draft picks like this, they speak to me as far as they knew what they were. They knew that they weren't going to be able to hold on to Jared Cook. So they had to get a guy, get him in the system, and kind of get him up to speed this year. And then next year is when he's going to be the starting tight end most likely. And, he's going to take his lumps when he goes into the starting role as well. I'm not expecting huge numbers out of him next year either. It's going to be the year after that, I feel like, when he's really going to pay dividends for your fantasy team.
Well, and he ended up being in a similar situation as Bryant, where it's a team that's really competitive, that's going for a Super Bowl, and you can only trot rookies out there with so much comfortability. It's tough to be able to put a guy out there without having him battle tested and stuff like that. So
with a veteran quarterback, you can't be missing assignments and screwing up your routes and stuff like that with a guy that is literally year to year whether or not he's going to retire or not, and is one of the greatest.
Is wild because I feel like I've even seen people talk about like well-known reporters like Ian Rappaport saying like, in a year where Drew Brees is going to retire and blah, blah, blah. And then like the announcement still hasn't come. Like I'm starting to lean toward maybe he's not going to. Maybe he's coming back.
I've thought about that too. Like maybe he won't retire this year and come back at like just a vet minimum to help the Saints out and give them like, hey, let them find a guy to develop it. I'll come back one more year. I believe I can do it one more year.
It's just wild.
And it says, like,
good for him.
And does it where like, this is my last year.
Yeah.
I think
a farewell tour.
I think he's 50-50 right now as well. And you mentioned Troutman being such a small school prospect coming out of Dayton. That's a big transition to come out from Dayton here. But you mentioned Dayton as well. Like, he put up big numbers. We're talking about a guy who's very athletic and has great hands. If you go back to that draft process as well, Adam Troutman was a big-time name at the position going to the draft. The Combine, people loved him.
I was going to say,
all the major scouts loved him.
I love that you brought out the Combine because his numbers there were gross. His 40 number wasn't great. It was, it was typical tight end, 4.79. But his 3-cone, 6.78. That's fast for a wide receiver. You know what I mean? Those are great numbers. And this is a guy that's 6'6", 255 pounds, another mountain of a man. But he's getting through these 3-cone drills. And his 20-yard shuttle, 4.27. That's nothing to sneeze at for a guy that's 6'5".
That's true.
Yeah, 255. God bless you. So this guy, he's a guy that can pick him up and put him down. And you have to imagine that Sean Payton is already envisioning ways to get this guy involved in the offense and kind of having things run through him eventually. Michael Thomas, he's a 28-year-old wide receiver who, he's going to be in this offense through the transition, but not much after it. And Troutman is a guy that's going to be there long after the transition to the new quarterback and on all that.
With another great offensive mind in the NFL. I mean, we're mentioning guys here. We're talking like top 5 guys here. Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, Sean Payton. These are our fantasy football coordinators that provide us
Yeah.
with a lot of good stuff.
Those are the ones you want to latch onto.
And Troutman's going to, like you said, who's going to be the last man standing? Who in 3 years when my reload's ready to shoot, going to produce? And this is another great name to add for a very minimal cost right now on Troutman.
Just roll down the window and pull them in.
Pull him
There
in.
you go.
Just pull in a trout.
That's a window or a rod?
I don't know, man. I don't fish.
Yeah, stick that right out the window.
I don't fish.
I don't fish either. And what's funny, my father-in-law, when we go on vacation this year we're going to the ocean. He's like, "You guys want to me and my brother-in-law?" And he's like, "You want to go on a charter whatever that thing is?"
Yeah, a charter, fishing trip. Yeah.
And my brother-in-law immediately replied, "Yeah, hell yeah, I'm in." And I'm like, "My kids would like that. Yeah, sure, I'm in."
I
I'm
did.
like,
I did that
okay.
once. I paid $150 to get. It was. I got so motion sick. The only thing I saw one fish get reeled right past my face as I puked. It ate the puke, and that was the only fish I saw the entire trip because I just had my head hanging over the.
I'm just trying
time.
to catch jaws.
Yeah,
That's all I'm trying to do.
I can't do that open
Not a
ocean.
sea-
Sharks or nothing.
I can't do that open ocean stuff, man. As soon as the boat stops and it starts going up and down, I'm
Well,
screwed.
I'll let you know how it goes, Nerd Herd. Hopefully, I live
Yeah.
to tell the tale. And I'm probably gonna come back with some sweet story about me catching like
For sure.
a swordfish. Somebody sitting here with a sword.
I've done it like 3 times.
Right through his arm.
It's fun.
Yeah, you catch anything good?
Oh yeah, we caught a ton of dolphin fish.
Oh, you
Caught
flipper?
dolphins?
Wow, that's not cool
Not
at all.
dolphins.
Murderer.
Dolphin
Yeah.
fish. Maui.
Wow.
Maui, they call it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I'm only hungry enough for one Maui.
You can keep the fish that you catch. You got to pay for it, and they butcher it for you and take it home. Are you gonna do that?
That's a nice way to put it, Butcher. Hell yeah, I love fish.
Oh yeah,
I might eat it raw, sushi style. Garrett,
Last but not least.
but least.
Burn. Go.
Well, I
is
feel
it?
very confident about this one
Let's
now.
find out who it is.
All right. So right now, if you are a fan of Green Bay
Oh, I was right, least.
or a fan of one of that, just listen, Rich. You might learn something. If you're a fan of Green Bay, you're interested in where Aaron Jones is going, right? You're also very interested in what's going to happen with A.J. Dillon.
Sure.
Those are the two big topics of conversation around the Green Bay backfield. However, there is a guy in the Green Bay backfield that is basically free. And his name is Jamal Williams.
Free to roam?
Free to run, free to roam,
Free to cut.
free range chicken. Let me remind you of a couple things.
I'm about to learn
Last
something.
year, 19 carries, 77 yards when Aaron Jones was out. Also had a touchdown, 4 catches, 37 yards. The next game, 75 yards, 6 receptions, 27 yards. He is a very solid running back. There's nothing sexy about Jamal Williams except for his dance moves. Very good dancer. However,
I haven't seen that.
yeah, he's a very good dancer. Really nice guy. Like, look up
You're
any
right,
of his
I'm gonna learn
interviews.
something.
He's hilarious.
Okay.
Like, he's hilarious. But I think there's 2 likely scenarios for Jamal Williams next year. One, Aaron Jones leaves, and he ends up back in Green Bay along with A.J. Dillon, and they share time. Situation 2, he goes to a team that just needs a veteran running back, Houston Texans that could use a veteran running back, a Buffalo Bills, something like that, a team that could just use a veteran running back. But either way, the cost of getting him in the 15th round is nothing. And you can then turn around and take this as a lowly bottom feeder rebuild team and say, hey, fancy, good, powerful, championship contender team. How about you give me a high-end second for Jamal Williams with how well he's producing right now?
So you're advocating the flip here.
I'm advocating the flip.
Okay.
You
I
can
got
get him
Jamal
for free.
Williams, my fishing tour, I'd throw him back in the water.
That's disrespectful.
That is disrespectful, man.
No, I
I
think
don't like his fantasy production. Sorry.
I think he cost you nothing, and I think there's a very strong likelihood that he is a relevant running back next year.
I like the fact that it costs you nothing. But I feel like there's a decent amount of free agent running backs right now that will somewhat limit him. I like his price tag because he's going to be so cheap. But even guys like the Buffalo Bills, it's still going to be the Devin Singletary. It's still going to be the Zach Moss show.
Is it? Did you watch him?
I did. They didn't look that good, but I mean, I think Zach Moss is just as good as Jamal Williams. You know what I mean? Like to the point where they're not going to go in and pay. It's going to be fine. It's going to be hard in this salary cap restricted year to find rooms to pay the veteran minimum running backs when you can just draft them and have those guys. Like a team like Buffalo to me doesn't make a lot of sense because they already have the young guys on there.
That was just a random team. I
get it, but I mean, like any team that and like what running backs will be available at the same time. Where I think he'll get. I think if he gets signed and he gets the opportunity, it's just for the price of free. You're not wrong. I'm not arguing that point because like he's free, so I'm not arguing don't make the move. It's just you're saying to flip him to the high end second. I think the odds of that happening are almost slim to none. But lately, I'm saying that to help you out because everything I saw
every time we have that conversation lately, it's
that is saying something adamant won't happen. It's happened. So I got get these balls shined up.
You do, man, because they're dusty and they're not working very well right now.
You don't play with them for a while.
That sounded succulent.
Sweet succulent balls.
But
Mr. Clean.
Jamal Williams, I like the stats that he's produced on the limited amount of carries that he's gotten. So I think here's how I see it, and here's how I would be excited, I guess, somewhat for Jamal Williams. I would be excited if Aaron Jones left and Green Bay found a way to sign him.
Yeah, and I think that could happen.
I think they know how to use him in the passing game, and I don't think A.J. Dillon is much of a threat in that area either. So he would at least still have a role in that offense, and I think he would get more rushing attempts as well as they kind of ease A.J. Dillon into a little something. And then I could see perhaps you getting a return on your investment like you were just talking about.
That's the only way. And I agree with that too because it goes back to the Green Bay, the Aaron Rodgers effect, more so to say, where Aaron Rodgers makes running backs look good. When you have a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, they make running backs look good.
Yep.
Look what he did for Eddie Lacy, right? Eddie Lacy was just a Jag, and he turned into a high-end dynasty asset for a very short window. And I was on this podcast screaming, sell Eddie Lacy, sell Eddie Lacy.
Right.
This is not a good investment right now for where you're going to get back on him. And I think in that category, yes. And if he does it, it's the reason why I like A.J. Dillon in 2021.
Sure.
Do I love the player? No, but in that offense, he will succeed. He'll put up running back 2 numbers strictly for the fact that he's playing in Green Bay and playing behind Aaron Rodgers in that offense. He will produce. It kind of goes same thing. It doesn't matter what running back goes to San Francisco. I want that running back because he's going to produce.
What if it's Jamal Williams?
And he will produce. And then he will produce. And it's a possibility, as long as Raheem Mostert's still not there. So, and if he goes to San Francisco, if he goes to the Green Bay.
You see that conundrum I put him in?
Yeah.
I'll take that.
That sounds like Jerick McKinnon. I'm in. I'm in, dang it.
Now for my next guy, why you should go out and give up 5 firsts for Jerick McKinnon. Poor guy.
What is this, 2019?
He started off so hot, too. I was like,
so hot.
My bold prediction is going to come true.
2 really, really good games.
I know, dude. He started off all good. It was like me looking in the mirror. But like most things, my vision cleared up and things got real ugly real fast. So is that it? Is that all our guys?
I think that's it.
So let's go ahead and recap these guys. Today we talked about Harrison Bryant, tight end for the Cleveland Browns. We talked about Paris Campbell, wide receiver for the Indianapolis Colts. We talked about Cole Kmet, tight end for the Chicago Bears. We talked about Deebo Samuel, wide receiver for the 49ers. And, of course, just now, Jamal Williams, running back for some team, hopefully the Green Bay Packers.
Don't forget Adam Troutman.
And Adam Troutman, tight end for the Saints. These are all players that we believe can help your dynasty team, some in 2021, but most beyond that season. Remember, this is the game of dynasty. It's a long-term play. We're trying to mold our rosters into not only having very good starters, but depth that we can rely on when, world case pandemics break out or injuries break out, and we can get through that because depth, we talk about depth is great to have. You want the best starting lineup, but that's what gets you through the playoffs and helps you win. But more importantly, like you said, flip-wise, gives you the ammo to make the big trade. Because, it's why we preach in the draft, why you should draft the best player available, because it gives you more ammo to trade down the road. And once you add players that are valuable with draft picks, now you're starting to grab high-end talent here. So those are our picks for this show. Next show for the Nerd Herd Show, we're going to be talking about players to buy if you're a championship caliber team. Now, there's one player I won't be talking about on there that I want to talk about because I just did a YouTube video on him. Naheem Hines.
Oh, I thought you were going to tease. But you
No, because and the reason I'm going to tell you this is because
Rich, he don't play around.
No, he does not.
Well,
right in.
He's on the YouTube channel.
That's a good point.
Go watch the show. What I'm trying to say is go subscribe to our YouTube channel because this is kind of content we're providing over there as well. Make sure you go over there, like it, subscribe it on YouTube. I talk about 10 minutes about why you should go out and buy Naheem Hines. To me, if you're on a championship caliber team, he's a must buy. And I give you the price tag for what I think you can get him for in that video as well and what he produces. Go make sure you check that out at our YouTube channel. I have a couple more videos coming up. We have a lot of videos coming up here. We'll have it all through the offseason. People are like, hey, can we get more shows? You sure as heck can on YouTube.
Yes,
Go
sir.
there, like it, subscribe, hit the notifications, get to dynastynerds.com. If you join the Nerd Herd, you can get our next episode. For the price of a cup of coffee, you can get our next episode and hear who we think we should buy for your championship contender. So if you're a championship caliber team,
You got to subscribe.
you got to subscribe.
Get on there.
I mean, how are you going to get over the edge?
You won't.
Get
Maybe
the,
you won 3 straight. Well, you want to win 4?
get the Dynasty GM free sample and go ahead and subscribe.
And that's the big thing, guys. As we enter a Dynasty offseason, I put a tweet on here just the other day, too, saying the first step of the offseason is to evaluate your own team, right? And the Dynasty GM is the best tool to do that. I can sit here for about 15 minutes and tell you all the different things the GM could do. It's that, it's that
Multifaceted. It's in depth.
That's that multifaceted. Wait, a faucet is hot and cold. This doesn't make sense. So, and again, I don't even have to sell it. It sells itself. Get to dynasters.com.
Good thing it does.
And try it out. It's hot. It's cold. Maybe that's your team. Hot, cold. You don't know.
It could break it down just that easily for
You
you.
want to streamline your teams? You want to see your player shares? You want to make trades? You want to see player cards and where this player lies? It streamlines everything. If you're more than 5 leagues, it's the best tool in the business. I think it's the best Dynasty tool in the business today. And again, I believe in it so much we offer for free for everybody to try. And after that, it's again the price of a cup of coffee.
Yep.
A month. I mean, me personally, I spend like $7 a day on coffee. Like no joke.
That's a lot of Dynasty Nerd
That
subscriptions.
is, man. You know what I do? I home brew my own nice cold brew.
I know you're doing it. It's fantastic.
It is
And I started doing it
delicious.
for a year, but then I fell behind. Now I just don't do it. And I go to Dunkin' Donuts in the morning. I get an iced coffee. And I go to Dunkin' Donuts usually around lunchtime. So if I want to do my intermittent fasting, the
Yeah.
coffee gets me where I need to be.
It sure does.
And I'm a big iced coffee guy.
Me too.
Oh, wow.
I drink iced coffee all winter long.
Yeah, me too. I roll up.
Cold
It's
brew
18
all
degrees
winter
out.
long.
I'm rolling on the window. I'm like, can I get an iced coffee, please?
People look at me like I'm nuts, but
I just get nitro cold brew.
yeah, that's pretty
Yeah,
good.
that's good too.
Yep.
Yeah,
Got a
all
little bit
of
of that bubbles in there.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you drink it black.
It's like drinking.
Got the most caffeine at Starbucks.
It's like drinking a Guinness, but with caffeine.
That
I
guy.
need that caffeine.
I need it too. Oh, and I'm one of those guys where like caffeine works on. If I drink a cup of coffee, I'm like, andale, Reba, let's go. I love it. And I just saw a report on
That
CNN.
wasn't a
the other
bad
day.
speedy right there.
Thank you so much, Tommy Gonzalez. And I just saw a report on CNN. If you drink, they did a report going back. They did a study going back to 1948. So for over like 72 years or whatever it is, that they just found. This came out just the other day. If you drink black coffee, it can only be black, right? It has to be caffeinated. That you're likely to live longer. It's really good for your heart.
There you go.
Tell my heart that when I've had 2 cups of coffee and no food because I'm doing intermittent fasting at about 11 o'clock and it's beating like crazy.
I love you, heart. Valentine's Day is right around the corner. If you want to get someone you love, check out the Dynasty Nerd store and check out dynastynerds.com. We'll be back next week talking all about all kinds of cool stuff.
Yep.
Tight butt.
Adios.